AirAsia Heartbreak to report this afternoon that bodies and debris and oxygen tank has been found in the seas just off of Borneo Islands. We understand AirAsia, Indonesia AirAsia Flight 8501 has disappeared into the ocean, and no one knows exactly yet why. Joining us is an aviation crisis consultant, Ken Jenkins. Ken, welcome back to the Mark and Dave Show.
Hey, thank you, sir.
We're hearing that this plane wanted to divert around a thunderstorm or get to a different altitude and was denied, and consequently had to fly right into this thing. Could it be that simple, that it just flies into a thunderstorm and it just blows it out of the air?
Well, I hesitate to say that it is or it couldn't be. And the reason is, how bad was the storm? But typically, no. I mean, planes fly through thunderstorms all the time. I've been on planes where they've been struck by lightning before. Nothing even happened to the plane. There was no bump, no move, nothing. However, there's usually not one single event that causes the accident. There's usually several things that happen in succession. So there was either some miscommunication, something catastrophic happened with the aircraft, along with the contributing factors of the weather. We really won't know until we get to the cockpit voice recorder and the flight deck recorder to see what information those hold.
All right, you're a crisis consultant. I'm reading a Newsday editorial that the president of Indonesia, Joko Widodo, is being praised for his handling of this, that he's being very transparent, unlike the two earlier Malaysia Airlines maladies. When you're looking at this as a crisis consultant, I mean, you look at it through a different prism than the rest of us. We look at it and we see the tragedy, we see the heartbreak. What do you look at?
I look for the full transparency, as you were just talking about, to be honest. The families do too. Anytime they feel that they're being deceived or not being dealt with in an honest way, is certainly going to lead to suspicion and doubt, and then further apprehension and anxiety. The delicate balance is for the airline and for the country to be able to provide that information and to be fully transparent, but to do it with compassion and empathy. There are ways to give information and ways you shouldn't. And so as long as they're providing the necessary information in a way that takes the family's needs and emotional states in mind, then I'm fine with full transparency. I think it's the best way to go.
Well, they announced that they had found the plane and the debris in a live television broadcast that was beamed throughout the country, and a lot of the family found out that way. Is that the best way?
You know, and I chuckle, and I don't mean that in a humorous way. It's a catch-22, to be quite candid with you, and the reason is this. As I mentioned, the families want information, and I've set up and have run a number of family assistance centers, and I will share with you one of the things that people want, absent information, when they're waiting to be briefed, is a television to watch. And they want to watch CNN, they want to watch the local news where that accident took place, and they want to hear all the different reports. And they get that information, and then they can feed that to the airline and the authorities to say, hey, we have questions about this. And so now we see the catch-22. We have the TV in the briefing room. Media is out apparently either on a ship or in the aerial one of the planes going around that's searching for the debris in the passengers and crew, and they live stream this, and it's fed back to that TV in the room, and that's how they get the information. Ideally, not the way that I would present it, but at the same time, do you just remove the TV? And if that happens, then families will leave the briefing room and find someplace where they can view the news. So, yeah. I wouldn't like it that way, but I can understand the families need to have the television. And
maybe in retrospect, it's what you want to be. You want to find out as soon as you can, and sometimes that media is where you find it, whether it be television, radio, or even social media these days. You have to be concerned about that too.
No, that's very true. If you think back to about a year and a half ago when Asiana 214 crashed in San Francisco, there were a number of tweets from the National Transportation Safety Board showing pictures of the inside of the aircraft, and there were family members that lost loved ones in previous accidents from several years ago that were offended by that action. And the NTSB was trying to be fully transparent and saying, here's what we're doing at the investigative scene, yet at the same time it hit up against the emotions of family members from previous accidents, and it received a lot of negativity from the views of the families.
As an aviation crisis consultant, we're talking with Ken Jenkins. Do you always want the family to have hope? And in other words, transparency is your number one goal, but do you want it cloaked with hope? In other words, that there may be that miracle that saves everybody, or is it better just to be frank and tell people, look, we don't know what happened, and the chances are it went down?
Validation and empathy are probably the two most important skills and communication skills to use with families. My role as a responder and working with families in the aftermath of an accident is not to tell them how they should feel or how they shouldn't feel, but to validate what they're feeling. So if a family member came to me and they were hopeful, maybe they survived, then I would validate that. Because we don't know at this point. Maybe they are alive. If everybody has already has been determined to be found as a fatality, for example, then maybe you don't respond at all and say anything at all, because it's up to the family to accept what they're being told when they're ready to accept it. But it's never on the responder to make them understand, make the family understand the dire situation of the fatality. It's just not what we should do.
Flight 8501, I remember watching when it first disappeared in the airport at the arrivals board. It said "Sea Agent." Is that standard protocol? I always thought that, wow, couldn't they put something different there? Because that tells you right then, brace yourself.
It does, and airlines wrestle with this all the time. And I worked for a major carrier for a number of years, and there's still internal debates among airline institutions about what's the appropriate language to put there. And unfortunately, nothing seems to have come from that as what's better to put there.
Status quo on that. Hey, listen, you're in high demand, and we appreciate you taking the time here with Mark and Dave. Ken Jenkins, aviation crisis consultant. You can find him at KenJenkinsLLC.com. Check him out. Humanizing command and control, and I'm sorry to say that's it's in high demand these days.
It is.
It is. All right, friend. Thanks for talking to Mark and Dave.